Welcome, everyone. I'm Katy Wallace. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and today we're talking about circadian rhythms and how they enhance health. This talk is for health education reasons only and should not take the place of medical advice. So we're talking about circadian rhythm today. Circadian rhythms are different changes, whether or not they're physical, mental, behavioral, that follow the 24-hour daily cycle. And there are many examples of daily circadian rhythms in humans. So our body temperatures undergo regular fluctuations that follow a clock, as do hormone levels, digestion, our gut biome, our sleep habits, our activity levels. You can see in this figure, which I took from Lumen, a company that focuses on how light and different types of light can influence physiology, that you'll see even things like alertness, coordination, blood pressure are all on a clock. So this clock, or actually there's multiple clocks, are controlled by a main clock called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So the SCN is a part of the brain that sends different signals to different parts of the body to regulate temperature or to regulate hormone levels. So you can think of this as like your brain's master clock that then determines the rest of the clocks that impact your health. So in addition to this, almost all the cells in our tissues and organs have a biological clock, just to undermine how important this is. And the suprachiasmatic nucleus coordinates all of these peripheral clocks through the viewing of light. So disruptions to the internal clock are well associated with a wide range of diseases and health issues. We know, for example, that night shift workers are much more prone to disease and health problems than people that follow a regular daily shift. This is just an excerpt from a medical study talking about how important the circadian rhythm really is for managing disease, because people that don't have healthy circadian rhythm are much more vulnerable. And the circadian rhythm, because it affects all of our cells, can really affect the biology of how we manage disease in many ways. One of my favorite researchers, and you can look him up, his name is Sachin Panda. He's got some TED Talks that are pretty interesting about circadian rhythm. And one of his bigger studies that he talks about is where they took different people from all different ranges of different food habits, night shift, day workers, healthy, unhealthy, and they had them follow a specific eating window where they stopped eating overnight. So no snacking at night, basically. And even if you're working at night, no eating at night for those people that were night shift workers in the study. And what he found was pretty mind-boggling. It didn't matter if people ate junk food or not. Everybody who restricted food to during the day and didn't eat within a few hours of going to bed got improvements. No matter what they ate, no matter what they did, if they stopped eating overnight, they got great, significant improvements in their health. And the markers that particularly improved that they were looking at were cholesterol, blood sugar, and reduced body fat. And of course, if you are at all into health, you know that these are tied to metabolic health, which underlies whether or not you have disease in all areas of your body. So this is really profound, I think, that consistent early eating window has such a big effect on people's biology. So basically, just not eating after dark helped people with their heart health and helped prevent being overweight and being obese, and prevented type 2 diabetes from developing. And so, there's a lot of reasons why this is so helpful, and it has to do with the fact that our digestive systems are not ready to receive food at the nighttime, and and particularly food that's hard to digest. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And a lot of things, a lot of reasons that the body is healthier is that it controls for inflammation to be fasting. for part of a 24-hour cycle, particularly at night. So that timing of the fasting with the daylight and the nighttime is very critical. Another key takeaway is something I talked about in my last live lecture, which was in the summer, the resistant starch lecture. So if you didn't see that, you can go back to my website and watch it. Resistant starches help feed butyrate producing bacteria or short chain fatty acid producing bacteria. And those are proving to be very critical part of gut health and critical in all areas of our health. So when you're not eating overnight, you allow the butyrate producing bacteria to multiply, and that has great implications for health overall. Here's a study where they talked about just this, restricted fasting window overnight and how it's so good for the gut biome. So if you're someone who struggles with digestive issues, dysbiosis in your gut, listen up. This is for you too. Last December, I gave a talk on the connection between the gut biome and cognitive health, and you can check out that video online too. And I talked particularly about this study where they found that these butyrates, these short chain fatty acids, which are gases produced in the gut by these good bacteria, they're implicated in our GI function, our blood pressure regulation, the regulation of the circadian rhythm itself and all of its benefits, which I'll be going into more detail about, our neuroimmune function, protecting us from cognitive decline and other neurological disorders. So really pretty interesting and profound effect just from doing things that help with this particular group of bacteria in the gut, one of those things being fasting overnight. Here's a study that just talked all about how fasting improves autophagy, which is the breakdown of unhealthy cells, and reduces inflammation and prevents neurodegeneration and cognitive decline. Here's Panda talking again about some of the takeaways from his other studies. He found that when people don't eat after dark, at least 3 hours, they had a huge reduction in GI issues like acid reflux. So consistently in their studies, people that did not eat 3 hours before bed got great improvements. So if you suffer from heartburn and acid reflux, this would be a great rule for you to follow too. Obviously, it's a good rule for everybody, but particularly in that case. A number of other studies have found that sunlight exposure has a big impact. So just one of the key takeaways I want you to get from this talk is that it's so important to be going outside during the day, and it's so important to be sleeping at night and kind of protecting yourself from a bright artificial light environment at night if you want to optimize health. One of the more interesting studies about the gut biome and sunlight took women, and they showed that women who used UV light to increase their vitamin D levels had a healthier and more diverse gut biome than the counterpart women in the study who just took a vitamin D supplement. So of course, both groups got more vitamin D, one from the sun and one from a supplement, but the one from the sun had a much healthier gut biome. And that's because our biome needs the sunlight too. The bacteria in our gut have circadian rhythm, and they're going to be healthier when we're out in the sun. Furthermore, we know that having like a consistent bedtime, having a really good sleep cycle, and fasting during that window of time is really good for the gut biome. Another thing that follows circadian rhythm is our stress hormone levels, and cortisol is the main stress hormone level that people like to talk about. So this is a graphic I wanted to include here just to show you what the daily cortisol or stress hormone level looks like. So when we wake up, it should jump up within, like 15 to 20 minutes of waking up. So I don't exactly like this graphic. I would have it jump up. I get up at 6:30, so I would have it jump up by 7, not at 9. And most people who get up with the sun, it's going to jump up if you've got your windows open and the sun is coming in, or you're going outside for a walk. This cortisol level, this elevation, really helps you be alert and helps you be motivated and organized and energized for the day. And then the cortisol level drops off. We call this a healthy downhill ski slope. So we can test cortisol levels. I do this in my practice where I test them throughout the day to help see if someone has a healthy cortisol circadian rhythm. And the light environment in your life has a huge impact on whether or not your cortisol regulation is good or not. So bright sunlight in the morning really helps balance cortisol levels during the day, so you will feel more energetic. It also helps with that drop at night so that you can go to sleep because cortisol has an interplay with the sleep hormone melatonin. Cortisol cannot be high when we want melatonin to be high, so they're inverse. So you need your cortisol to come down at night. And to do that, you need to have bright exposure of sunlight in the morning to signal to the suprachiasmatic nucleus that that's how the hormone pattern should go. So a big part of people's energy levels and pattern of sleeping at night have to do with the hormone response to seeing the sun. So we know, experts know, daily sunlight and having a good sleep cycle as consistent as possible really help prevent mood disorders, because when cortisol is all over the place, then that's when we begin to see anxiety and depression and different mood disorders. And obviously, this is just one piece. Mood disorders can be pretty complex. A group of mood disorders correspond to the gut biome, which again is going to be regulated by light. And you can also help regulate your stress hormone levels through what you're eating. So I don't mean to say it's very simplistic, but going out in the sun is one, it's something that's accessible to everybody or just about everybody. So it's a really powerful tool for helping with mental health. So getting sunlight in the morning helps you sleep better because it leads to more balanced stress hormone levels, which leads to better melatonin levels, and then you're sleeping better. And experts say the best time for sun is within an hour of waking. So if you can get up and you can go outside, the light environment, even if you have a lot of windows, the light environment outside is just orders of magnitude higher than any indoor light environment, and so much better for the type of signaling that I'm talking about that will help to optimize health. Another takeaway with this idea of, what's going on with circadian rhythm is if you wait an hour before eating breakfast, that's actually best for your digestion. Our digestion doesn't work very well when our stress hormone levels are really high. So it's, in fact, high cortisol levels tend to thin the gut lining. So it's best to avoid situations and environments where we're constantly stressed or we're not doing things to help with regulating that cortisol response to what's happening in our lives. So if you wait an hour, your cortisol level is naturally going to drop. Melatonin's also going to drop, and your digestion's going to be much better. So this is a takeaway from Dr. Sachin Panda's work as well. This is just what I just said. Another takeaway from scientists is that evening appetites really peak. And so people that are more prone to binging or overeating at night, like there's a circadian reason for that. And it's because the more stress we're under during the day, the more likely the hormones that affect our desire to eat and our blood sugar swings are dysregulated. And so there are, if you know this about yourself, then you can work on sort of managing how you're eating to avoid getting into a pattern. That I'm always sharing with people is that if you want to balance your stress hormone level, just going to wait a second because it says my internet connection's unstable. Okay, if you want to balance your stress hormone levels, then you should eat protein every 3 to 4 hours throughout the day, because this will keep your blood glucose levels steady and your body won't be making surges of cortisol to try to help with balancing your blood sugar. So really, really key take. And just promoting overall digestive and mental wellness to have those balanced cortisol levels. Okay, so taking a turn to talk about another circadian rhythm, I wanted to talk about what happens with the immune system. So scientists have found that neutrophils, which are a type of white blood cell that fight infections, are most active during the day. So the circadian features are they're very active during the day and then they're suppressed when we're sleeping. And so if you want to optimize your immune system, like when you're feeling a little under the weather, it's actually best to go outside because that will actually help your body to make more of the cells that help fight the infection. So I, you know, I think a big part of dysfunction that we have in our bodies has to do with our lifestyles, and you can just make some tweaks here and there to really help change a situation, especially if you have a chronic health issue that you're working on. As another example, scientists have found that tumors in the lungs, the cancer cells in lungs, have to do with having a disrupted circadian rhythm. So people who aren't sleeping soundly, are working at night, are likely much more prone to unhealthy tumor growth. This is just an excerpt describing that when the circadian clock gets off track, it implicates a cancer signature gene called HSF1. These are heat shot proteins that seems to be triggering lung tumors. The lungs are under very tight circadian control, and so when we're not having a great waking and sleeping cycle, then they're more vulnerable to that disrupted clock. And then furthermore, another group of scientists found that this link between lung cancer and circadian disruption actually has to do with temperature. When we're sleeping, our body temperature changes, it drops by 1 or 2 degrees, and this helps interfere with how this heat shock protein gene acts. So they think that people or animals, this is actually, a lot of the studies were done on mice, that are having disrupted sleep cycles are just not getting that fluctuation in body temperature that we naturally would if we were sleeping, and that was making individuals more prone to lung tumor growth. So the big takeaway here is you want to optimize the immune system, work on a consistent sleep schedule. I mean, staying close to your sleep schedule all 7 days of the week, not having it vary widely, and go outside. I mean, our bodies take care of a lot of things just with these basic behaviors. Okay, what about exercise? So exercise is a little confusing. I had heard different things about, oh, consistent exercise, consistent morning exercise is best. But when I really dug in and started to look at the research, I found some different things. So I really think exercise kind of depends on your goals and depends on the person. Exercise is an amazing lifestyle intervention. In all the research, it is the #1 intervention for improving our longevity and improving cognitive health in the long term. And obviously, what the type of exercise will determine the different benefits as well, right? Like if you have osteoporosis and you're concerned about your bone and your muscle strength, then you're going to want to do strength training. But what the studies found was that morning exercise especially helps regulate your internal clock. So if you're someone who sort of struggles with regular circadian rhythm, doing it in the morning might give you some improvements that way. Morning exercise also helps lower cortisol. So if you're more prone to be a little more stressed during the day, then it's better to exercise in the morning to help with that stress management. And I can relate to this. Like I definitely like to exercise before I go to work. And I find if I consistently do that, I'm a lot less anxious when I'm at work than if I weren't exercising in the morning. And exercise in the morning overall tends to boost energy for people. Evening exercise, though, has benefits too. It turns out that if you really want to build muscle, that working out around 6 p.m. seems to be the best way if you're going for personal records or really trying to maximize that gain. It can also help with mood after a really stressful day if that works better for you to unwind then. But if you have exercise that's too vigorous and it's too close to bedtime, experts conclude that it's really disruptive to people's sleep. So you just got to watch out for that. So exercise, everybody agrees exercise that's done consistently is better than exercising randomly. But I would say any exercise is better than no exercise, right? So there's sort of like a hierarchy of optimizing things. And it turns out that there were some differences between men and women too in our circadian clocks and the different benefits of exercise. So a study in 2022 found women who worked out in the morning lost more fat and had greater reductions in blood pressure, probably because it's supporting the cortisol regulation. While working out at night helped promote their muscle strength and enhance their mood. For men, working out in the evening promoted more fat loss. So it was different for men and women. Women lost more fat in the morning. Men, they did better with evening exercise when they're trying to lose fat and lower their blood pressure. So it really depends on the person and what works for you. But yeah, some interesting little caveats there. So I want to talk a little bit about artificial light. I have another lecture called More Energy that you can watch on my website. And it really goes into a deep dive about how energy is produced in the body and how the light environment impacts that. So if you want more detail than I'm about to go into, please check that out. The blue light, like coming from our computer screens and our phones and our TVs and our LED lights, it really reduces the ability for our cells to produce energy in the form of ATP. But you could just think, if you don't remember from high school biology, all of that, just think it's reducing our ability to make energy. It's increasing our insulin resistance. So that means it's creating blood sugar swings, perpetuating chronic inflammation in the body just from the blue light. And it's notorious for causing sleep disturbances. So most of us are on the screens the majority of the day and into the evening in many households too. And so that this blue light is really pervasive, and especially when we're exposed to the blue light in the evening, it seems to be most disruptive to our biology in these ways. So there's a lot of different things you can do. You can put, I just have this bad picture of myself because I wanted to show you my blue blocker glasses. They're kind of tinted yellow. So you can get blue blocker glasses to shield yourself from the blue light. You can also use like an app on your computer and your phone to shield you from the blue light. And at home, you can replace your LED lights with incandescent ones. And you need to go outside more. I did this several years ago. This 1,000 Hours Outside is a nonprofit group that just promotes people in the effort to spend more time outside. And so you can see this was my chart where I logged all of my hours for a year to try to get 1,000 hours outside, or what would average to be about 3 hours a day outside. And it was really helpful. They have that saying, what counts is what matters, or what matters is what you count. And so I would say it did help me realize that I could do some things outside that I was doing inside. And I didn't need to be inside all the time, even though that's sort of our default mode of action. Here's where you can look at the other videos on my website. If you go to Human Nature LLC and go up to the news tab, You'll see all of my videos. This one, More Energy, I go into a deeper dive about using red lights at night to help promote circadian wellness and help boost melatonin and suppress cortisol and other things like that. So just to summarize for today, the light exposure really helps reset your internal clock. So if you're working on a health issue or you just want to optimize things, don't overlook light exposure and keep working on increasing your sunlight exposure. It's only going to be really helpful. Scientists say that going outside within 1 hour of waking is especially helpful, especially if you're working on a mood disorder or you want to improve your sleep at night. Prioritize time in the sunlight, I would say, for everything, right? For your immune system function. I didn't show you this study, but there is a study showing that people that exercise outside get better benefits than people that are exercising inside. So there's all sorts of ways that being outside enhances our health through the circadian regulation. Dim your lights at night. Try to avoid a lot of artificial blue light. And if you can see the sunset, that also can really help with the regulation of the hormone levels that lead to controlling the different clocks. As far as digestion goes, scientists say avoid eating for the first hour of waking up. That allows your hormone levels to drop so that digestion is better. Try to eat within a 10 to a 12-hour window. So you're fasting overnight 12 to 14 hours. So like say you finish dinner at 7 p.m., then you go to bed at 10 p.m., and you would eat again at 7, 8, or 9 a.m. That would give you a 12-hour fasting window to get all those butyrates and other benefits of fasting overnight. Avoid food for 3 hours before bed. Our stomach acid levels aren't very good at night. They're strongest in the morning, so our ability to eat meals is usually better earlier in the day with the sunlight, and then it wanes later at night. So it'll help a lot with reflux and other upper GI issues and GI issues in general to avoid eating too close to bedtime. Optimize your time outside and a consistent sleep schedule to support a healthy immune system. Remember, our immune system is most active when we're in the sun. So rather than going inside and pulling all the shutters closed when you're sick, think about ways that you can comfortably get more sunlight because that will help your internal clock and your immune system. And exercise at a consistent time. We know that the consistent time is important. And then I would pick morning or evening or whatever other time just based on your individual needs and what your health goals are.